thanks everyone for coming. I think people are still gonna get in, but I don't wanna lose any of our precious time together here. We have three amazing ladies with us. First of all, Astrid Kahmke, who actually did the curation of this edition's event. So she curated the speakers for Connect 4, which are Maria Courtial. She's also a German filmmaker, producer, and Astrid is going to talk a little bit more about that later. And also Cathy Hackl, who is a futurist and who probably a lot of people know in the XR industry. She will also come by a little bit later on for a fireside chat. And yeah, just very shortly to me, I am Sara. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I am also a VR creator. I'm a VR designer. And I am a co-founder of Women in Immersive Tech Europe. We are a European community and we connect women and other gender marginalized groups and their allies to foster diversity and to foster exchange in this growing industry. We try to give people a voice that usually don't have a voice that much. And we also try to celebrate female talent in our industry. We have a speaker directory that we recently started pushing a little bit more on social media. So if anyone is interested, please look at our website and engage. We're a very open community and we're always happy about new people that share our enthusiasm. I also want to introduce Joanna Matai, one of my co-founders who is standing over here. I introduce her as a superwoman, but you can also call her the bouncer of these events because she is making sure we are staying here in a safe space and everyone has the opportunity to talk when they can talk and no one is being cut off. That also goes for no one is just talking into the talks of our presenters. So please, everyone mute your microphone. If there's continuous issues, Joanna also has the task of removing the people that are disturbing the event from the event. So sorry already about that, but that's what we need to come together in a safe environment. Vera is today in our Zoom. She's the Zoom host. And at this point, I also want to introduce Paul from Felix and Paul Studios, who is volunteering to live stream our event on Zoom. He's standing right here in the front with the short brown hair. And please don't stand in front of him just so that we have a great view for everyone that cannot make it into VR and is watching our stream online. And most importantly, I also want to introduce Tatiana. So I am co-hosting these meetups and I co-initiated these meetups with Tatiana Braun. She is a program coordinator at the Goethe-Institut Montreal. And by now I could also say we definitely became VR friends. It is funny that we know each other since a year by now, but we only once met in person. But I feel like we met 100 times otherwise over social media and in VR. And thank you, Tatiana, for really supporting this event so much, for standing behind it with the Goethe-Institut, with this cultural institute from Germany, and really even carrying the event out into the region of North America. You do a really, really great job with co-hosting these events. And thank you from my side a lot at this point. And with that, the stage is yours, Tatiana. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot, Sara Lisa. It's yeah, I'm always amazed I'm happy that we initiated those meetups. I'm always amazed how you arrange the room with the material of our interesting, inspiring speakers, and it's always such a lot of fun to just be here. And yeah, so thanks to you, Sara Lisa. Yeah, quickly, welcome to you also from my side. Thank you for joining Connect today. This is our fourth meetup for women and gender marginalized people working in the field of immersive technologies, and it's also the first meetup in 2021 after 3 very successful meetups in 2020. So yeah, we are very happy to offer this platform for exchange and connection, such as this one, and fostering international cultural dialogue between Europe, Canada, and the US is an essential part, actually, of our mission as a cultural institute, and it's especially important in times like these where we can't get together physically, and I think that social VR is, as Sara Lisa already mentioned, and if you were here and saw the video before, is really an interesting and amazing way to get together in a way more intimate and, like, I don't know, like almost closer way than via Zoom or all those video chat platforms that we got to know a lot during the last year. I'm very happy that we are able to offer inspiring women from Europe, Canada, and the US this platform and this safe space to create sustainable connections and collaborations. And and especially as a huge cinephile that I am, I'm very happy that today's meetup is about cinematic VR. And it's actually, I think, about 5 years ago that I had my first VR experience at the film festival in Berlin. And right now, VR is, or VR sections are a part of most big film festivals. So it feels quite established in a way. But this is basically how I stepped into VR myself. And last but not least, I would like to thank our amazing partners that help us, support us in many ways, communicate about the event, spread the word, are there to make this a sustainable and exciting experience for everyone. So mainly I'd like to thank, of course, Women in Immersive Tech. This wouldn't exist without Women in Immersive Tech Europe, actually. And I also like to thank Felix and Paul Studios, who are always there to support us with documentation. I would also like to thank the State of Bavaria office in Montreal and the Conseil Québécois des Arts Médiatiques SECAM. And thanks. That's all for me. And back to you, Sara Lisa.
Thank you so much, Tatjana. Next up on my introduction list is Astrid, and I just wanted to briefly say that Astrid is a really amazing woman working in immersive tech and has definitely been a role model for me throughout the last years, kind of stepping into the XR field. She was one of the people that encouraged and enabled a lot of the early connections and a lot of the early projects that I was involved in, with initiatives like the European Creators Lab that she is running, where the first edition started in 2016 or 2017? 2017, and where she brings together new people that want to enter the medium from different directions, from filmmaking, from animation, from even other disciplines that are really kind of motivated to step into the field. She brings them together and pairs them up with experienced mentors, people like, for example, also Paul over here that came as a mentor. Other people that are in this room have probably even been a participant at these labs. And a couple of the projects that emerged from the European Creators Lab even went to film festivals like Venice VR and even got awarded. So I'm very grateful that Astrid is here to join us today and curated this edition around cinematic VR for us. And with that, I want to hand it over to you, Astrid. Please take it away and tell us a little bit more about what you thought with this curation.
Thank you so much, Sara Lisa, and hello everyone in that space. Sara Lisa, just one sentence is it was you were one of these pioneering forces in VR that I discovered in 2016, and I learned so much from you. And Sara Lisa is a mentor from the very first hour in the VR Creators Lab. And this is also the period of time our friendship lasts for the last 5 years now, I would say. So thank you for your continuously supporting the Creators Lab with your expertise and with your courage. So thank you also, Tatiana and Sara Lisa, for this great event, because this is a great series of events that they are so important for the XR community worldwide, more than ever during that pandemic right now, to stay in touch and to keep on networking and learning, of course. While preparing and thinking about cinematic VR, I had once again realized how complex the theme is. It's not really easy, actually. And I want to make a start. I think we all can agree that the terms for the new art form, new medium, and new technology VR is still in a finding and definition process. So if we talk about cinematic VR here in this space, I'm sure we will have a whole bunch of different definitions and different takes on it, and they all might be correct even if they're incoherent. So I started to look up in the internet to find a lasting definition for right now, and I found, especially from the early years, a lot of articles and studies that were trying to describe the difference between traditional or flat filmmaking and this new hard to express 360 film thing, which is VR, kind of, or not. Maybe you remember the discussions if 360 film is VR or not. There were fierce fights sometimes in discussions. So I think we have grown up a bit, but there's one quote that is quite notorious for that period of time that says cinematic VR is a branch of virtual reality that covers high quality 360 3D video experiences, preferably with ambisonic audio and possibly with interactive elements. So that's quite precise, I'd say, on the technology end. I think, meanwhile, the use of the term cinematic VR has changed from the pure description of the used technology to the use of cinematic tools, like the field of view, the perspective, editing, cuts, aperture, and storytelling tools, of course. I tried to understand myself the evolution of storytelling that immersive technologies herald. I tried to define the paradigm shift between traditional storytelling and the future, or what feels like the future from time-based to spatial, or from narration to creation, and so on. And of course, one of my first VR experiences was a cinematic VR experience in 2014, the first steps to make a film or to bring a film from flat screen into a 360 environment. Cinematic VR is not the description of a specific technology like 360 film, or rather prefer to the creative usage of the filmmaking toolbox that they have at their disposal to tell their stories. So cinematic VR can cover the whole spectrum of VR technology, meanwhile, as long as it's telling a story or following a storyline and using the storytelling toolbox. And here, we are still in the search for the language, the right grammar, or how to use the tools we have in our hands to create a world where the user can find his or her own story. Although cinematic VR paved the way for filmmakers and storytellers into the new medium, they started their adventure into the uncharted territories of XR from the world they are already knew best. Masters of cinematic VR, as of course Felix and Paul here in Montreal, Céline Tricard, or our first guest, Maria Courtial, have a background as filmmakers. Artists and creators made huge leap forward in mastering the medium during the last years. They explored the opportunities and limitations of the technology and pushed the boundaries of storytelling from storyboard building even to story living. Cinematic VR is no longer the bridge between film and VR. It is an art form of its own. It can be 360 film, animation, or a mix of both. It can be filmed or computer generated. It can be interactive or not. It can be linear storytelling or using branching textures. Just think of Wolves in the Walls. I would describe Wolves in the Walls as a cinematic VR experience. I know that can be discussed, but in my definition, this is absolutely storytelling. So cinematic VR is coming of age and developing its own artistic personality. We wanted to listen today to two different, but I think also complementary angles of cinematic VR. The perspective of filmmaker and producer, and the take on the technology of a futurist and business expert. So I'm literally over the moon to introduce one of the pioneers and masters of cinematic VR here at our Connect Meetup. She has a background as industrial designer, and is co-founder and producer and managing director of Faber, one of Germany's leading VR and VFX studios. The creation of 360 film content became more and more a matter of heart to her from the moment they got hold of the first Oculus Dev Kit 1. So I can totally understand the exciting moment in the beginning. Right from the beginning of each project, she and her husband and director Jörg are working closely together with the ambition to set high standards in the way of storytelling and the implementation of new VR techniques. With their award-winning VR films Volcanoes, Gladiators in the Colosseum, and Second Step, all produced on behalf of the Europe's renowned public broadcaster ZDF, which is a German public broadcaster, Faber established itself as VR pioneer and provider of premium VR content in the international market. Their latest VR film, First Step, which deals with the Apollo missions, celebrated its international premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival 2020 and was awarded with the VR Future Award at Cannes, as well as the Emile Lumière Award at Stereopsia in Brussels. And additionally, it was selected to screen at the Best of VR selection at Venice last year. So meanwhile, the studio is increasingly creating content in 6DoF or 6 Degrees of Freedom. Their new VR project, Genesis, will be released this year both as a VR film and as a 6DoF experience. So you see, this is an incredibly rich and experienced person we are welcoming here, a power woman and one of the nicest individual I have met so far. So please welcome her warmly with a big applause, Maria Courtial.
Thank you so much, Astrid. So I don't know what to say. So because you said everything, so I tried to fix that and to have just a few, yeah, say, thoughts and a few explanations, a few informations, a few images. So maybe to talk a bit more about our aspects. And thank you, Sara, because yeah, that's the beginning of my talk. Because so to know me and to know what I and we do, it's best to let the pictures do the talking. And since you see, that's us. We have been building digital worlds for 22 years now, for film, TV, exhibitions. And so, yeah, as Astrid said, I'm one of the two founders and of the digital studio Faber Courtial. So we always wanted to be within our worlds, and this became true with, you mentioned it, the launch of the dev kit of Oculus, and 6 years, or is it already 7 years ago? So since we are originally a VFX company, in contrast to a lot of other VR enthusiasts back then, we already had a lot of tools which were necessary to produce in VR. Okay, additionally, we built an own renderer back then and later a special 360 camera. But then we were ready to produce our first VR experience. And we were lucky to get good export by the good support by the public broadcaster ZDF in Germany. We know each other for a long time, and we introduced VR to them. So, next slide, please. It started with volcanoes. It's 360 stereo 3D film, but also when the eruption freezes during the film, the whole thing freezes, and it's an interactive experience where people could activate different images, films, and information. So I would argue it was very innovative for 2015. And when it's about VR, so I'm the producer and co-director. And meanwhile, I've learned a lot about the difference of time and money calculations between normal film projects and 360 film projects, or even more complicated with an interactive menu like with volcanoes. So in the end, we needed a lot more time. That means working time, and that means money. And that's why we are still also working in the VFX business. Honestly, we need to co-finance our VR projects since we want them to be really, really good. The next project, again with ZDF, were the gladiators. This time, we wanted to insert real people. We defined two main settings, one in the arena and one in the Emperor's Lodge. We wanted to have a spectacular scene and fill the lodge with a lot of live action people. Senators, servants, the emperor, and even an eagle. We had to film each of the actors and the eagle with exactly the right perspective, height, and distance to the camera, since the live action camera had to match with the virtual camera. So I thought it might be interesting to see how this works. You will see a very short making of, and yes, so Sara and I know that even the end isn't there, but I think it's nice to see. So it's from that untextured model to the final setting. So I'm sorry, the final setting isn't there. So the untextured, and these are all the layers of all the different people we filmed. And yeah, so sorry for that, and thank you again for doing it. At least there is at least all the people, and at the side there are digital crowds, you see, and yes, just one glimpse. And so that's an advantage with 360 film, because you don't need volumetric models there. You can insert just planes with your moving actors. However, of course, filmed stereoscopically to have this so important depth effect. So with our film Gladiators, we didn't change the camera a lot and instead focused on a dense atmosphere with the action close to the viewer and with a lot of details to discover. Yeah, so that's the next one. Thank you. Meanwhile, we produced 10 high-quality 360 films. Each of them is completely digital, except some real actors. Some of the films are even independent film productions. And so, you have to go back again, sorry. So, thanks a lot. With Second Step, a film about future missions into space, we became more courageous and combined more and completely different perspectives. We learned a lot about the needed time for each perspective. So everybody needs a lot of time to orient, to have orientation. Where am I in this new place? And so we changed a lot during the whole process at the beginning. We changed it again and again. Camera, length of shots, the order, until we were happy. And I have to confess that so this is me and my husband, we argue a lot during the production about all the mentioned points. And yeah, there's more to talk about. There's text, there's music, but I still love it. So with our latest film, First Step, I know you think wrong order, so first, second, and then first step, but the Apollo missions, and that's first step, what First Step is about, happened to be before future missions. So, so with First Step, we finally had also realized the secret rules how to market such a product. So one important step, and we didn't know that before, is wait with the international or even world premiere until there's a well-known festival. In this case, it was Tribeca. And so we have been awarded a lot, but I think that's why this film is our most successful one, so at least regarding the famous festivals. So next slide, please. And so here's just a small glimpse into the production. In contrast to Second Step, we wanted complete live action astronauts, and yes, complete, since in Second Step, only the heads of the within the helmets are real. So this time, so the whole suit, all the suits were digital. So this time, we filmed the astronauts completely in high quality replicas of the former spacesuits and in front of green screen and in stereo 3D. And we did it again with each one separately, but in the end, all of them had to fit in this small capsule. You know, you can fake a lot in normal film, but a stereoscopic 360 film shows everything, so it's without mercy. But we were lucky, and yeah, in the end, it fitted. So remember this position of the astronauts? You will see him again in the trailer, lying in the command module together with the other two astronauts, like sardines in a can. So please, the trailer of First Step, Sara. So apart from the technical aspects, it was very important to us that the film be smooth, intense, and emotional experience. So you see, these are the 3 astronauts. So again, we concentrated on the storytelling, especially how to use camera. For example, while not everyone will see the rocket rising from below when they watch the film for the first time, we decided that this small confusion is worth it. Once the rocket rises in front of your face, you can't help but become aware. And if you're interested, you can have a look at it a second time. So, yeah, so I love our work. And at the moment, we restructure our workflow towards big stuff and interactivity. I still want to produce films since I want to tell stories. But it's, of course, thrilling to experiment with new possibilities. And honestly, I'm a bit frustrated regarding the distribution of VR films. Meanwhile, 2 important platforms don't accept apps with VR films. That's sad development. So I could tell a lot about that issue, and it's especially sad for people who are working just with live action film. They cannot switch to 6 stuff. So hopefully new options will arise. And what about my and our future plans? At the moment, we are in the final phase of our new 360 film project. Astrid mentioned it, called Genesis. And yes, you said it, this time we will also release a 6-stuff interactive version, but not simultaneously, I have to admit that. So, and in the far, far background, another project is waiting, a normal film series combined with VR experiences. That will need much more time, and we are looking forward to the moment when we can concentrate completely on VR to fulfill all of our dreams. So, thank you again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for this great presentation. We also have Cathy here, and usually we would have a question-answer period right now, but as we had a little bit of a delay in the meetup, I would say we would dive right in to the fireside chat with Cathy Hackl, who's already waiting over here, and we're gonna put the questions for afterwards, because as far as I know, Maria is also gonna stay with us a little bit longer, so we can all talk about the questions a little bit later on. And I would give the word back to Astrid for the introduction of our next guest.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria, for the interesting insights, and I have a lot of questions for later for you. Hello, welcome, Cathy. So I wanted to ask you all to turn around, but do we stay here on this side of the stage, Sara, or where do you want to have it?
No, we can already slowly move over. I mean, the audience can stay where they are, But yeah, we're gonna move to the other end of the stage.
Yeah, let's do this. I try to position myself and maybe here.
I'm super stoked that Cathy is here, and I'm gonna moderate the fireside chat. I, of course, have a million questions myself, but I'm very happy to let the audience ask some questions as well. And for a quick introduction, before we start right in, I would give the word back to Astrid for that.
Thank you. And from my side as well, thank you, Cathy. I know you're incredibly busy, that you were able to sneak in and share your thoughts with us. So Cathy has also a background in storytelling with a degree in broadcast journalism and sorry for that, broadcast journalism, and a year-long experience working for ABC News, Discovery Channel, and CNN, among others. In 2007, she was nominated for an Emmy Award for her storytelling work, so profound background here. Cathy started her career in VR and AR as Chief Communications Officer for, sorry, I have some technical issues, but back in a second.
No worries.
For Future Lighthouse. So Cathy started her career in VR and AR as Chief Communications Officer for Future Lighthouse, a cinematic VR studio that worked with entertainment companies like Sony Pictures, William Morris Endeavor, and Oculus. She has worked with some of the biggest names in tech, including Amazon Web Services, Magic Leap, and HTC Vive. She leads the Futures Intelligence Group, a futures research and consulting firm that works with clients in tech, fashion, media, government, and defense, implementing innovation strategies and emerging technologies. Cathy is a leading tech futurist and globally recognized business leader specializing in augmented and virtual reality and spatial computing. She's one of the LinkedIn's top technology voices and a champion for diversity. Oh, my hands are so. Oh, that's funny.
No, but I think that's good. I think that's good.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's
caught
good.
in the act. Now you all know that I'm holding my notes, but okay. Big Think named Cathy one of the top 10 most influential women in tech in 2020, and she's been called the CEO's business guide to the metaverse. That's huge, Cathy. Cathy was included in the 2021 prestigious Thinkers 50 radar list of the 30 management thinkers most likely to shape the future of how organizations are managed and led. She is a sought-after keynote speaker and author and global advisor for the AR/VR Association. If someone hears the grass grow, if there's somebody who can allow us a glimpse into the future of VR in general and possibly of cinematic VR in specific, it will be her. In other words, Cathy Hackl is a force of nature. Please welcome warmly future speaker, VR, AR, thought lead, and Wonder Woman, Cathy Hackl.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And if you hear a little bit of an echo and noise, I'm actually I also wear a vice president hat at Avatar Dimension, which is a volumetric capture studio. It's a Microsoft stage. It's the second one in the United States, only one on the East Coast. And I'm here today, doing some work in volumetric work over here. So if you hear some echo and rumbling, that's kind of what's going on. And we can definitely get into volumetric as part of that future of storytelling.
Okay, I just switched on your megaphone. Can everyone hear Cathy well?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And as I said, I have tons of questions, but please, everyone, you can raise your hand when you have some questions. I'm going to dive right in. and you can make your mind up. You can also text me your questions if you want me to ask them right away. Otherwise, I will bring you this microphone with which your voice is amplified immediately. And so as we were talking about looking into the future, that's why I would like to dive right in. So if you could look into the future for us, when and with which devices would an indie filmmaker or a smaller studio be able to make volumetric recordings, like, for example, with the Microsoft Volumetric Capture Studios? Or is this quality difference just not going to fade anytime soon anyways? So this is around accessibility and where we're going to be heading in the future.
Well, I think it's interesting because if you think about it, even today, right, an indie filmmaker uses certain tools while, maybe Hollywood uses different tools. So I think there's always going to be a need for a wide range of tools. The Microsoft Capture Studio that I work at, we have the best type of quality volumetric video you can get. But, I do think that as things progress, technology will evolve and it'll be different, and people will be able to use their phones just like they do right now to tell stories in more volumetric ways. So I also think, I do think there's going to be room for both, just like there is currently. But some things will be democratized and it'll be easier for people to do volumetric. But there will always be kind of a need for that higher, quality type of almost broadcast quality. And I think that in essence, it's thinking about it as, Sarah, as 3D performance capture, right? What we're doing here is 3D performance capture. So it really depends on the needs of the client. So I don't want to necessarily say it's going to be in 3 years, 5 years. I think that there's many things that are dependent on that. But I do see a future where more and more people are going to want to do volumetric. And I think the big thing there, the big part there is, once we move away from, I don't think we're going to move 100% away from our phones, but I think it's going to be a transition from phones to glasses, right? That's where we're going. We're all waiting for Apple to announce something, right? And in that case, through glasses, or through your eyes, everything you see has volume, right? And has dimension. And I think that when that does happen, and we start to transition more into that, when VR devices become even bigger bestsellers, people are going to want more volumetric content, and I think it's going to be kind of an explosion.
I wonder what you think of the quality, for example, with the recent Apple devices with LiDAR scanners and these kind of things. Do you think there's already huge improvements being made currently that are very well to be used in creation of cinematic VR content? Wait, one thing, Gina, you're standing in front of Paul, who is doing our Zoom share. Could you please move away a little bit? Thank you. Paul is the guy in the right corner here from Felix and Paul Studios, who's volunteering to do a Zoom screen share. Please, no one stand in front of him.
Oh,
Thank
so nice.
you.
So I think that we're getting there. I don't think we're there yet 100%. I mean, you could do some really artsy indie looking things with it for sure. I don't think we're necessarily there yet with the quality on our phones. I do think LiDAR is a big thing. If you ask me about what kind of companies I'm investing in and I'm looking at, LiDAR is definitely one of the sectors I'm looking at, because I think it's just going to become more and more important. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, interesting things that can be done with our phones currently from that perspective. It's not quite, it's really weird though, because I do work at a volumetric capture studio, so I get to see, I get to do something that very few people get to do, right? It's kind of crazy when I come to the studio. Sometimes it hits me, like, this is the second one in the United States, only volumetric capture studio on the East Coast that's a Microsoft certified studio. That's pretty exciting, right? And the people that we work with here are everything from storytellers to A-lister performers to defense and government. So the range of what you can do with volumetric, is I think sometimes people get limited and they just think it's one thing, but it's so broad. It can be really broad.
Yeah. And where do you think are the strongest points for cinematic VR? When you look at volumetric capture, volumetric content, volumetric video, where do you think this is really going to bring cinematic VR to a next level?
I think it's the close. This is how I see it. So I see volumetric video is the closest you can get to a real virtual representation of a human, right? It's the closest you can get to a human in ones and zeros. That's the kind of the way I describe it. So, seeing, right now I'm seeing all these avatars and they're great and they're lovely, but sometimes for certain things, it might be better to tell a story using more of that human perspective, right? To create more empathy, or it depends, or even training, for example. Maybe not getting away from the cinematic side, but sometimes in training, it might be better to use volumetric video. I'll give you an example. PwC did kind of I don't want to call it an experiment, but they use volumetric video in a training module that they have that looked at unconscious bias, right? So let's say you were doing this training with avatars. I mean, really, what are the assumptions people make about avatars? But if they're actually going into these trainings and they're looking at volumetric scans of real people, right? Those are real world assumptions. So, they would have people go through this training, take the device off, and just be like, oh my goodness, I had no idea I was doing that. So I think that there are places in situations where volumetric is so effective. One part that I'm really excited about from a cinematic VR perspective is kind of more on the documentary side, thinking through how you use volumetric to preserve stories, right? Some of that has been done with Holocaust survivors. I know our friends at Metastage worked on something with a former Black Panther. So there's a lot of things there. And I think to everyone here, I think one of my big messages here to everyone is that all of us that are working in AR and VR today, we're all building the printing press of the future, right? The things that people read now in books, in the future, when, books will still be around, but maybe we'll consume history in a different way. All of us are doing that. So first step, for example, it's not necessarily, there's parts that didn't happen historically like that, obviously, but there's parts where we're recollecting and grabbing all these stories and storing them. And so I think volumetric capture is a big part of being able to retain those stories for future generations.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for that answer. I would have one more point in terms of, because you mentioned avatars, and as it is still not an easily accessible tool, but do you think this is going to be a thing that people are really going to recreate their own avatars, or do you think people are rather want to embody different creatures, different beings, and we are going to be more creative, like, for example, what we are seeing in VR chat? Or do you think volumetrically scanned avatars, like, for example, saw in Altspace VR during the last Microsoft Ignite keynote around the Fire, the Cirque du Soleil piece? So I was wondering your take on that. And if I haven't seen it yet from the audience, please just come over here to the right side with your questions. If you have questions close to me, so you can just line up over here so we're not missing those.
So I do want to say something with the Microsoft Ignite keynote. Our team here at Avatar Dimension worked on part of that keynote. So there is a part of the keynote where there's two scientists speaking. They're underwater, and then they're on a ship. We actually worked on that. We did that here at the studio. So I'm very proud to be able to share that. Cool. I don't think it's going to be an either or. I don't think it's going to be like you only have to use your volumetric avatar. I think it's going to be like, waking up in the morning and saying, what do I want to be today? Do I want to be more my realistic self, or do I want to be a purple dragon, right? So I think it's going to give us that flexibility. And I think that's where, like, I look at this is why something I say in every one of my talks is my children are my best window into the future. Right. And how, especially now, seeing how they embrace their avatars and how they, in some ways, avatars are becoming emotional surrogates. I've said that before. Right now, all of us are, texting friends, and sometimes we use an emoji to say something we want to say without writing the word. Right. So emojis are emotional surrogates. So in some ways, our avatars are becoming those expressions of ourselves. And, and sometimes Sometimes I might wake up and I don't want to wear makeup, and if I can use an avatar, I would love to use an avatar. So I think it's not going to be an either or where you only can use one. I think there's going to be portability, hopefully, across open, an open metaverse of sorts, and you're going to be able to choose, and sometimes it's also going to depend, right? Just like you choose, what outfit to wear to a certain occasion, be the same thing. Maybe I have to have a meeting with my boss and I might want to wear my volumetric capture avatar. But then I'm partying with my friends in the disco and I can be a unicorn. So, so I think it's going to allow us to, it's going to give us flexibility. It's going to give us more fluidity in our identity, but we'll be able to choose also that more realistic version of ourselves.
I'm very much a fan of what you just said with the freedom of what we can choose. That is an amazing idea. Also looking at the open metaverse. And with this, there comes a question up. We've seen a couple of paid models popping up, like the Taffy avatar creators, where you can build your own avatar, but you have to pay for nice clothing, or for example, just basics like shoes. Various other platforms that are trying to enable creators to build their own avatars. Where do you think the future is going in that sense? And I'm saying it again, where is the queue piling up? Is this over there the queue, or would people come over here to my right? So if anyone wants to ask a question,
come on, guys.
Please come over here. I just don't want to take all those precious
Does no
time
one read
for
my
myself.
articles in Forbes? Maybe that's why. I always usually get lots of questions.
Yeah.
So what I would say, I mean, it's an exciting time to be alive, an exciting time to be part of AR and VR and the metaverse and everything that's coming. I talk a lot about something called direct to avatar, right? So that idea, like when I was growing up, my brother and his friends would save up to buy Air Jordans, the sneakers, right? That's what they wanted. That was the thing they wanted to wear to signal, right? But to my kids, really what they want is they want whatever money they make from special occasions or chores to be made into Robux, which is the digital currency inside Roblox, to buy things, skins for their avatars. So I think that there's something interesting happening there from, and I work with a lot of brands. So I do speak to a lot of brands and kind of how they start to get into these virtual goods and their strategies. So yeah, I think that once again, I don't think it's all going to be a free for all. I think there's going to be places for those free creator tools democratized, but there's also going to be places for, up leveling your avatar and paying more if you want to wear Stella McCartney glasses on your avatar. So, so I do think that there's going to be a range of different options. Yeah, and people will kind of do what they want and wear what they want to wear, and I mean, it's exciting. I from the brands that I work with, one of my clients is a global fashion brand, and it's exciting to see kind of the way that they're starting to think about digital goods as a new revenue stream, right? What's the revenue opportunity? What's the scalability? There's a statistic from ARK Invest that says that by 2025, the virtual goods economy is going to be worth $400 billion. And that's a big number. That was a number that was, in my point of view, now conservative, because that's a number that came out before the NFT craziness that's happening right now. So, so yeah, it's quite interesting, and I think it's a blending.
Yeah, I saw your blog post about that. It is super, super interesting also to see what kinds of backgrounds, when we're looking at Hispanic or Black people, like what kind of backgrounds are going to enter these markets more than others. I think there's like really, really interesting developments to be seen.
Yeah.
So I have, there is a question. I also have one last question, but there's one question that Astrid wants to ask you. I would just give you the microphone for that. And if we have time for my question in the end, I'm going to keep that.
Hand over, sorry for...
Does it work? Otherwise, you just amplify your mic.
Okay. I try the amplifier. So, see, that's incredibly interesting what you're saying, and I agree that there is what I find with the NFT hype, also with what Gucci is doing with the sneakers and that you can pay for goods in the virtual worlds. That's really interesting what's going on there. But for the bottleneck is still, I think, the consumer market. So my perception of the last year during the pandemic is that we are living in a kind of a parallel universe, divided in those who have access to VR with headsets or with knowledge, and those who don't. And my feeling is, as long as we don't have a considerable consumer market, we will never lift off on a broad front, and we will never solve or questions as Maria addressed before. So where is the market or the distribution platform for my creative pieces? What do you think about that?
It's really interesting because I get pitched all the time, right? And I cannot tell you how many times I've had someone tell me, we're making the Netflix of VR. Right? That happens all the time. And I'm like, well, really? So yeah, I think everyone's trying to solve the distribution issue, right? Everyone's trying to be that platform that's going to be the main distribution platform. I mean, it's still murky. It's still kind of murky when, having worked at a CinematicVR studio, where we did content with Oculus and with Sony Pictures. We shot with really famous actors like Robert Englund, who's Freddy Krueger, and Rupert Grint, who played Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter thing. So, but the hard part was, what was the distribution model? How do you get this into more and more people? And that was back when we had DK1. I mean, it was harder then. So there's always that problem, that issue. I think, WebXR is definitely one of the ways that we're starting to expand in that sense. But it's still difficult. I'm really curious to see what happens over the next year and a half, 2 years, related to hardware, and how, hardware, what type of hardware we get, what type of, what kind of prices and those sorts of things. The Quest 2 has been, a great thing for our industry. When the Quest 3 or whatever it is that they're going to call the next headset, like, I wonder what the quality is going to be in the pricing, and maybe that'll be another important moment. So I do think I don't think I have an answer to the distribution question. It's always been a hard one, but WebXR, I think, is helping, and then possibly, more hardware, more entrance, less walled gardens probably is going to be, one of the best ways, especially for indie creators.
Great, thank you so much. My next question feeds a little bit into that, as you were talking about hardware. I'm very interested in the latest news about the neural interfaces that have been announced by, for example, Facebook, or also Valve in collaboration with BCI. So what are your thoughts on if and how neural interfaces are going to play a role in cinematic VR, or specifically in immersive storytelling?
Well, I think it's huge, right? I think it's going to be huge. I've been very lucky to be able to demo about four of the external brain-computer interfaces. I haven't really demoed the neural one from Facebook. But it's interesting that we were saying BCI and now we're saying neural interfaces after they're using that term a little bit more. So I think that's interesting. But there's a big component there, right? It's the idea of, right now we're engaging with technology through a mouse if you're on a computer, or through certain ways, and how we're going to engage with technology in a more natural way moving forward. So I do think it's going to play a big part. I think just like haptics are going to play a big part, and other sensory types of inputs are going to be incredibly important for full immersiveness. So yeah, it will be interesting. Haven't used brain-computer interface devices. What I will say is that my brain absolutely loves it. So like, I can even and I've said this before, even when I think about it, like something in my brain lights up, some type of receptor. I'm still trying to think if it's like that my brain really likes to work out, or is that a good thing or a bad thing? So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's interesting questions that are going to come up with that, honestly.
Yeah, does this lead to an addiction, or this is something my brain really likes to do because it's an extra workout? So yeah, I think there's lots of questions and lots of things that are gonna kind of come up, and yeah, I mean, especially when you're trying to read someone's intent, right? If it's a bracelet or something in your brain, you're reading people's intent, like what happens with that information and that data, and and everything. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of very uncomfortable questions that will come up.
That is true. In terms of immersive storytelling, do you think it's going to be a key component to make storytelling in VR this vision of this journey where you are the hero and you play in your own film that is basically driven by your decisions, that this is going to be like a big step in those areas?
I think so. I think we'll come down to choice once again. Like, do I really want to be that hero today when I put the VR headset, or do I want to be a spectator, right? Is it immersive spectating what I want to do today, right? Do you always want to be on the court playing, or do you want to be on the, on the side of the court sitting down? So I think it'll be kind of a choice in that sense, and I think I really am excited about some of the things that I know are coming that are going to combine all sorts of immersive goodness and entertainment in both physical and virtual worlds. And it's so exciting, the things that are coming down the line.
It is super exciting, very much. Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on one of these devices for sure. In my humanoid robotics studies, I was just experimenting a little bit with self-built sensors, but that's definitely a whole different story. So yeah, let's look at into the future there and see when all these things are going to be accessible, so that indie creators can actually also build experiences around those tools, experiment. I think this is really the most important things that are happening, that those tools get in the hands of creators that can really make up their own stories, and that we have the diversities in diversity in content for any of those devices. Anyone else? Thank you.
No
Anyone
questions?
else in
Come on, guys, seriously?
This is your opportunity. Don't be too shy. There's no dumb questions. I think this is also the question of the sideline or the active role. I do think, there's a question. I do think VR might be more of a place where people are being more self-conscious before they open their mics than in real life. Thank you, Maria, you already had your mic open today.
Yeah, so I hope you can hear me. Yeah, so this was, of course, very interesting, Cathy, of course. And I was yesterday in Neos, and I thought about my avatar, and I thought about when can I buy special costumes and dresses and so on. So, so typical women stuff, of course. And the other thing is, so for our new project, which I mentioned, Genesis, so we won't think about that, but there's another one where we think about sort of a guide, and at the moment we think if this guide should be a volumetric one, because you're right, this is much more emotion, much more intense than just maybe creating meta-human. But of course, you could have facial tracking, gesture tracking, and so on. So this is a very important question for us at the moment. And so what would you think? What to use?
I mean, I'm very bullish on volumetric. I think that there's beautiful things that you can do with it. And if it's the right story and the right message, I think go for it. This is what I tell, especially when I work with brands, right? Because I do work a lot with brands. When you're creating these AR and VR experiences, you need to think what memories you're creating for those people. What memories are you creating for the consumer? And I think that's my same question to you is, what memory do you want to create for them? Is it a memory with an avatar, or is it a volumetric memory? So.
Absolutely, you're completely right. So the problem is, I think it's still the great data. And so if someone thinks about an experience which maybe even would work on the Quest, volumetric video isn't, so it wouldn't fit.
What do you mean?
Yes.
So no, I'm currently working on a VR project with a volumetric video inside the experience.
Okay, inside for the Quest.
Yeah, for the Quest 2.
Okay. Sounds good. So
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're ingesting the hologram in the experience. It's a project with the Air Force, so not the cinematic VR by any means. But no, we're ingesting the volumetric video inside the VR headset. And the PwC experience, which I can send you a link to, Maria, also is on the Quest 2, and it used volumetric video inside VR inside the headset. So.
Yeah, I think that's a matter of optimization. That's my daily business, being in Unity and trying to optimize those things. It's really that work that's critical at that point. And I would say, if it's possible, everyone come take a photo. And then I think we're going to wrap up today's event. Thank you so much, Cathy, for all your amazing answers, for being here and spending the time with us. That was really grand. At least I'm a big fan. There's a lot of other big fans I've heard in the last weeks too. And so if we could take a photo all together over here.
Come on, guys. I don't bite.
Yeah, just everyone here come on the stairs. And yeah, perfect. Oh, and don't stand inside each other.
Oh, sorry. Let me move.
Okay.
Show some emojis.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. One more. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
so
yeah,
much.
so
Cathy.
feel free, everyone, to stick around, just mingle, exchange after all this exciting information that we just got. Everyone that has enough of being in VR, please take off your headsets, take a break, take a cold drink. And thanks everyone for being here. That was amazing.
And hope to see you next time.
Yeah, hope to see you next time.